A new season.
Here we go. What up, DC?
A clean slate.
There's been so many new players, so many shakeups.
A worldwide arena. This is the T-Mobile Road to Grand Finals.
New York City, let me hear you!
Can anybody stop them? The answer is no.
This team is chock full of potential.
Oh, that was dominant.
Carpe comes back with the Widowmaker.
Such a bold call.
It's looking pretty good so far now to Deadeye. Oh my word, from the top ropes.
That is filth. This is an absolute stomp.
Houston Outlaws find their first win of the season. One haymaker after another. Soon turns to fight the Pass Eternal. They take it.
The atmosphere in here is electric.
The Overwatch League announced that it will be canceling the home match events for the rest of March as well as April.
When the pandemic struck, we, the world, all of us, needed heroes to turn to bring us together and to connect us online.
The matches will still be played, just not in front of the live audiences.
Our production team has been doing incredible work over the last couple of weeks to set us on a path where we'll be able to broadcast every single one of those matches.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us here at the Overwatch League.
I'm so glad Overwatch League is back.
We are broadcasting live from our bedrooms, living rooms, hallways, wherever it might be.
It's good to be back. You know, the world's a little bit crazy out there, so hopefully we can provide a well-deserved, well-needed digital reprieve for you.
Are you ready?
They keep the dream alive.
I'm excited that not only is Overwatch League back, but our Chinese teams are back.
It feels like it's a brand new season to me.
The Blossom takes down Gushui, and the Dragons, are they about to do it? Lip with the 4K to the back.
Birdring comes in, the Ash play, it's filthy!
We are in May, and that means we have a end-of-month tournament.
The May Melee about to begin. Knockout round play.
The Shanghai Dragons have done it. I cannot believe what we have witnessed, the reverse sweep.
That's all it's going to take for San Francisco. They are your victors here of the Overwatch League May Melee.
Diem and LeeJaeGon against the world, but they cannot get there. The Guangzhou Charge have done it. They will take the grand final, shutting down the Shanghai Dragons.
The Paris Eternal shutting down the Fusion. They denied them of their crown. The Paris Eternal take the series.
The clock has struck midnight on the Countdown Cup, and the Shock are victorious.
Shanghai Dragons assert themselves as the best team in the APAC region, potentially the best in the world.
So, that's it. That's it for the regular season.
What more could you ask for?
We can't wait to see you for the start of the Overwatch League playoffs.
This one is going to be epic.
Deadeye to start, Blizzard coming through. EMP manages to catch on the 5, but Lip with the Deadeye takes down 3.
What you've all been waiting for.
In a season where metal was tested and rivalries were forged, 4 teams emerged from the Crucible. The Seoul Dynasty.
We expect great things from them, but again, they have not really soared to the highest of heights that maybe was expected of them.
Throw the seedings out the window.
It's so impressive that Seoul have been able to have this turnaround.
Seoul Dynasty seem to be able to make any composition work.
The Philadelphia Fusion.
Always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
It's really scary if you're a Final Four team looking at this Fusion team, because I don't think anything is ever going to catch the Philadelphia Fusion off guard.
They really, really deserve that spot in the top 4, and I can't wait to see what they have in store for us at the Grand Finals event.
The San Francisco Shock.
They look it as good as ever, and it doesn't really seem there's anything stopping them, no matter the meta.
It's absurd. The way this roster is built and the way that they can adapt to every meta, San Francisco Shock is the meta.
What more can you ask from the Shock, really?
And the Shanghai Dragons.
They got to be feeling pretty damn good.
No team will ever be perfect, but how close they get at times. It's jaw-dropping. I look at this team as the best team in the world. It's NA versus Shanghai.
The long road of this season has led us here. The payload is almost delivered, and the final checkpoint is in our sights. Who will claim the honor and glory to become your Overwatch League 2020 Grand Finals champions? And who will be the T-Mobile Grand Finals MVP?
Welcome back, everyone. Grand Finals weekend continues on, and Jake, if the first series was any indication, this is going to be a wild ride.
Yeah, I think that's a great description, ZP. No idea what to expect, really, because this is innovations to this Roadhog meta that we really haven't seen up to this point in the playoffs, right? They're playing on the same patch that people have been playing all playoffs long, but I think teams have started to figure things out, innovate more and more and more. We saw this from Philly Fusion, actually, when they played the Washington Justice back in the end of the NA playoffs, bringing out this Roadhog Sigma, and now it looks like it's just dominating. Shock had so much success with this comp.
Yeah, the teams had more time to look at, but you take a look at the bracket in case you're tuning in just now, and the Dynasty, they gave the Shock all they could handle, but the Shock just coming out on top, avoiding the reverse sweep. And that brings us to the lower part of the bracket, where of course it's going to be the Dragons, the #1 seed in APAC, taking on the Fusion. And I mean, this is a stacked matchup.
Well, if you're here at this point, there's a reason, right? There's incredible skill. And to look at, some of the superstars who are really going to be driving this match, players to watch, it's hard to think of anybody else besides Fleta to start that conversation.
I mean, he's the T-Mobile MVP of the league for a reason. A player that's been able to flex regardless of the circumstances, continually making massive plays for the Dragons. And now you have to wonder, is this going to be Fleta's year where the Dragons take everything over the top?
And Fleta's just been a player who's deserved this kind of success for so long, and this is finally the time. He's got the team around him. It's no longer the Fleta show. It's really this incredible team performance of which he is only one part. It just goes to show that when you can see the whole team and not be completely distracted by Fleta, that's just the caliber of player that is on the Shanghai Dragons. This entire roster is incredibly strong, and it's reflected in their Roll Star awards.
Yeah, I love how you say it's like the team is really strong, because you go, oh, we'll just isolate Fleta. It's just like, well, no, there's no weakness anywhere here. The Dragons are literally stocked with Roll Stars. Not to take anything away from the Fusion, of course, with the Fusion, 2 Roll Stars of their own, and especially Alarm coming in strong as Rookie of the Year. A crazy season for Alarm, but yeah, I mean, this is a star-studded matchup. The Dragons look great, but the Fusion, I mean, definitely have some surprises in store, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, these teams, while we've seen something from them in the playoffs, they've also had a lot of time to innovate. They have time in the lab to adjust things, play a little bit differently, come up with specific counter strategies to deal with your opponents. It's interesting because I think both of these teams, Shanghai and Philadelphia, favored this, rushing style with a Moira comp, a Reaper, Sombra. They both seem to want to play that way for most of playoffs, and only at the end did they sort of grudgingly accept the dominance of the Roadhog. So it'll be interesting to see these two teams both adapting. They've had a lot of scrim time to practice and come back in. But really for Philly, I mean, we only saw this one time out of them, so I think it's impossible to know how this is going to break down.
Yeah, I mean, you see the stats in front of you. I mean, both teams very, very good. But, as we've seen, the meta has evolved a bit, Jake. So, the stats, you take it with a grain of salt here.
Yeah, I mean, I just throw them right out the window, honestly, because these teams aren't going to be playing these comps whatsoever. I think it's going to be particularly exciting to see a player like Carpe coming back in, getting a little bit more play time. We saw Carpe a lot for Philly Fusion when they wanted to run a slower comp with especially the Ashe, but also maybe the Widowmaker. But they just weren't running that style for so long. So now switching back to put Carpe in the lineup, to me, that just screams that they're going to be playing this Roadhog comp. They want to put Carpe on the Ashe or the Widow.
Well, I know it. We've talked enough. Let's see the teams head on out. Let's hear it for the Philadelphia Fusion.
They've just been such an incredible team all season long. So dominant in the regular season in NA. I think this has been a team, though, despite all their incredible accomplishments, they haven't ever really pulled it all together. They've been waiting for that championship moment, to win a big playoff. It just hasn't come to Philadelphia Fusion. So these players are still hungry. They still want it badly, and they've got the skill to do it. They've got the teamwork to do it. However, their opponents are not going to go down easy.
Yeah, I mean, remember, too, the Fusion, this is a team that basically did not lose during the regular season. They were the #1 seed throughout the regular season, did get knocked down into the lower bracket in playoffs, but just a remarkably consistent team.
And I think what's especially fun to watch about the Philadelphia Fusion is how much they focus on team coordination. It really feels like this team always is focused on playing as a unit. That's why they wanted to play these Reaper Sombra styles that are really all about teamwork. So now shifting away from those styles, it'd be interesting to see a player like, in my mind, I'm focusing particularly on Fury. I want to see what he can do. I think Fury is that superstar caliber player who can make a difference in this game, especially when he's in a comp that allows him to make more solo plays.
Well, the opposition, it's going to be tough. It's the #1 seed hailing from APAC. It's the Shanghai Dragons.
There's really no award that you can't give to the Shanghai Dragons. I mean, look at their flexibility. They can play any comp under the sun. Look at their individual playmaking and skill. Absolutely everybody on this roster has had those clutch moments, has pulled it together when it mattered most. So there's not really a weakness, I think, to the Shanghai Dragons. There's a reason they're the #1 seed coming out of APAC, which a lot of people thought might have been the tougher region so far in this Overwatch League season. So to go up against the Shanghai Dragons, you've got to be very confident. You've got to really want it, because no matter what you bring to this team, they aren't going to be crumbling. If you're going to beat them, you need to beat them head-to-head. You need to beat them in an honest, honorable way, because you won't be tricking this team. You won't be, sliding maps past them. They're just too good for that. You have to be able to take them on in those head-to-head battles, and that's a very tough test, especially against players like Fleta and Diem on those DPS roles. It is going to be brutal, a very tough test for Philadelphia.
And also, let's look back. This has just been a crazy redemption story here for the Dragons. Think back to the inaugural season, a team that had 0 wins. And yet, Jake, as a franchise, they have gotten better and better. They've made the changes necessary to transform what was once the worst team in the league into very arguably not just the best team in the league right now, but the favorite to win it all. It's one of the most ridiculous stories the league has ever produced. But now, we're putting all that to the side. It's time to play Map 1 Busan. Heading right at you.
Yeah, definitely going to be exciting to see, and what a redemption arc it would be for the Shanghai Dragons if they could pull it together this year in Overwatch League 2020 to be the champions. They've got a long way to go yet. A lot of very strong teams still left alive here in Grand Finals weekend. But Shanghai, I mean, it's just the Cinderella story. I mean, even if you're not a fan of Shanghai Dragons, you can't really be upset if these guys do so well, because, as you're saying, to go from 0-40 in the inaugural season, completely rebuilding the team, completely developing from the ground up, and becoming, as you said, so incredibly strong. There's a lot of hopes on them, but I wonder now, does that get to their head? Does that end up being just a little bit too much pressure? Philly, they can, despite their success, can kind of consider themselves a bit of a scrappy underdog here, and I feel like these players, they're really going to rise to that occasion.
We got the hog swap coming in here for the Dragons. Expect to see much the same coming out from the Fusion, though Sado, no, gonna roll out on the ball, and stand 1 back to the ball, so it's gonna be ball Sigma on both sides.
Yeah, it's a full mirror comp. This is going to place a ton of emphasis on the Widow duel. Heesu and Diem getting an opening pick here is going to be absolutely massive. You see Fleta here on the flank. He's come all the way behind. Should give his Widow a bit of a positional edge. See what he tries to get on. Looks like Philly wants to take this lower side. Could be risky for them, but again, it's all about this Widow duel.
Both teams feeling each other out right now, neither taking a huge risk. Dragons being a little bit more aggressive in their positioning. Diem on the hunt right now, still looking and looking. Doesn't want to get caught off guard by Heesu on the other side. Stand 1, getting focus fired down to a degree. Fleta, bit of danger, and the Dragons get first control.
Yeah, first cap is big. You don't want to be giving up control time like that. Matters a lot on Koth. Can put a lot of pressure on, though, with that pick by Heesu to Izayaki. It will be quickly res, but a lot of pressure comes out on the tanks. Philly needs to find something more, but it's actually the res from Izayaki that does get that kill.
And I think Carpe tried to go in the punish, ends up getting punished in turn. The Fusion now, they're just getting poked down on all angles. Fleta going in for the kill. Fury super low, Sado pushed out, and the Fusion, they don't stagger here, Jake, but they are thrown back as the Dragons continue to get progress.
I feel like you spoke a little bit too soon, a little bit of caster curse there, Z, because they are getting staggered, and brutally so. Shanghai charging forward, Fury dropping low. If he dies, that would be so painful. And this is where it really counts that Shanghai got that early flip. Typically with a 1 fight on mid, you might be at 20% right now, but Shanghai, they're doubling up on that because they got the capture point control before the fight even broke down. So Philly really going to be hurting from that.
Pulse Pop forcing out the Transcendence. Nice up from Fleta, though he does give his life for it. So the Fusion, they commit the Transcendence here. FunnyAstro going to the top of the Valkyrie. The res somehow comes in the Fleta. They don't protect it, but the Void down, the Fusion, they have their opening. Moving now towards the point. Carpe Unleashed gets one. This is looking like it should be the Fusion getting the flip.
And, you know, what a superstar performance from Alarm. And look at this. Izayaki doesn't even have his first trance yet, as we're shooting a bit of delay coming from stand one. Should be inconsequential, but how did Alarm get the trance first? If he didn't have Transcendence to survive that Pulse Bomb stick from Fleta, we could have seen an incredibly different fight there. We could have seen Shanghai holding on to control, getting up to 99, but Alarm just doing so much this round, has his ultimate ready to counter, and that makes all the difference. Now Philly has exactly the ult you want. Infrasight from Heesu here, it's going to be so painful for Shanghai to try and push in.
I know at Alarm, he's the Rookie of the Year for a reason. The backbone of this Fusion team. Now Diem looking for an opening. Meanwhile, we got Carpe on the side. Pulse Bomb locked and ready to go. The Fusion desperately need to add on to their lead here. Sado drops him into back. Carpe going for the stick. Heesu finds LeeJaeGon, but Diem's right there in the punish. 5 on 5. Here comes Fury going for the Flux. Fusion expecting some resources to stay in control.
Both teams trading here, a lot of frags. Shanghai going to be very happy that they got the flip. It looks like, I was going to say it looks like it won't be enough, but maybe it will. Fleta and Carpe still trading out. Shanghai getting a lot of late kills here, and now that flip looks like it might just be the end of the round. Incredible game impact for the positioning, and Fleta just does a little bit more. Both Tracers went off this fight. Fleta, though, he ended up winning that duel late in the engagement, and it's all cleanup now for Shanghai. How did they come back in this fight? That was incredible.
It's going to be tough. I mean, they just lost both supports as they were moving over the point. Sado's down, not going to be able to delay for much longer. And that should be it. The Dragons take round one in a pretty commanding fashion. And, you know, Jake, I would just rewind and look back to how the Dragons took the point where it was bloodless in the beginning. They simply outpositioned the Fusion, they pressured them back, and they got that first control, and it just continued to pay dividends over the entire course of the round.
And it happened 2 times that round, ZP. So not only did the first control go the way of Shanghai, giving them a bunch of extra objective capture time for the first fight victory, but also even in that later fight, they got the flip early on, so that instead of it just being a one fight and, you know, Philly having a chance to retake, it was just round over. So Shanghai, they're a positional game, focusing the objective. It's really paying off here. And as we move on to Mecha Base, it could be another map where that's more relevant. However, it might be a little bit harder to do here because high ground is so important on this map. If you lose control of that high ground, yeah, you might have the point cap, but you're going to be in a tough spot.
On that note, thanks to Coke Energy and to you fans for participating in the Coke Energy Hour. Stay tuned tomorrow for more chances to earn 3 times the Overwatch League tokens, courtesy of Coke Energy. And the Fusion, they could use some of that energy right now. Jake as Fleta goes in, gets FunnyAstro immediately. And even though Diem's down, the Dragons still looking to keep up the pressure. But okay, a little bit too deep. The Fusion, they're starting to punish.
And in this case, the objective pressure not able to come in. Normally a Mercy pick is about the best you can find in this mirror match, but Alarm doing a great job surviving with no second healer. And now, I mean, there's no advantage at all for Shanghai. FunnyAstro going to be right back into the fight. Carpe going to be cleaning up here with help of Sado. Little long walk off a short pier there for Void. And Philly getting first control and, you know, relatively clean there despite losing a Mercy to an early dive. The picks came in and Philly were able to get control. I think Widow is going to be a strong choice here. Diem on the Ashe might struggle to find those duels. You know, he's going to get one tapped from long range. Yes, you can pressure tanks a little bit more effectively, but how valuable is that really when you're retaking?
Well, Heesu looking for the early shot. Most of the Dragons able to get through. LeeJaeGon doesn't take any chances, dashes on in. So the Dragons have gone through the first hurdle. They get through the choke point now. Sitting up on the high ground in the Fusion. They're going to dance around this a little bit. They don't look to contest it immediately. Look at stand one from the back, pressuring the supports. Alarm super low. Stand one just takes down Heesu at the end of Fleta. That was so well coordinated.
Nice tracking from stand one. That shutdown of the Widow makes all the difference. FunnyAstro does get the res. Oh, but Shanghai, they've almost got the flip. So much pressure on the cap. They've got to stay on, and they do lose the flip on the side of Philadelphia Fusion. So looks like they want to continue fighting this. Both support ults are ending, and the picks, they're coming on the way of Shanghai Dragons. So Philly, they invested so much in that fight, and they get absolutely nothing but a kick in the teeth for it.
Yeah, I mean, the only just upside to that for the Fusion is that, okay, they lose the fight, they lose resources. They were in control for a long period of time, so all is not lost just yet. But that was a remarkable take for the Dragons, and see if the Fusion can respond in turn. And you're talking about the Widow, but now Heesu going over to the Ashe.
And well, now Diem has map position, so he's going to be able to play it at close enough range to just force those one-shot kills where Widow's less relevant. So I like this switch back from Heesu, but in that case, Diem, as I said, just a little bit too aggressive, gets that one tap.
Stick to the back though, Carpe giving Fusion new life. The Resurrection comes in and the Fusion back up to a full 6. Void dropping the Flux right over near the choke. Diem brought back up. Both teams playing tooth and nail, but Carpe can't be stopped. Gets over to the back, finds Izayaki, and Carpe continues to be such a huge problem for the Fusion net, or for the Dragons, as the Fusion move over to the point.
Carpe, he's such a monster on this Tracer. You almost forget about it, seeing all his ridiculous highlights on Widow. There he puts another on the board, and I mean, just Carpe time and time again. Not only did he find a stick on the Ashe in the Transcendence, that's basically the only target he can reasonably kill with the Pulse Bomb, and he finds it and then moves on in the engagement to get 2 more kills. So, I mean, Carpe is just an absolute menace on the backline, and now LeeJaeGon, Izayaki, they use both support ults trying to hold on, and they didn't get anything. So now Carpe, he's going to be attacking that backline with a vengeance, and they're going to lack the defensive tools to stop him.
Both teams having more luck on the attack than the defense. Dragons now heading over and in. Sado heavily focused, but it doesn't matter. Heesu's able to find Izayaki immediately, and Carpe off the nano boost just heads to the back. Does enough with the aid of Heesu. And the Fusion DPS here, Jake, they're really coming alive.
That tracking was so clean on the Diem in the air. Just absolutely rolled him through the Mercy Beam heals. Just perfect tracking with the Nano Boost. I mean, there's a reason you give it to Carpe. He's been popping off. And stay in one. Going to make the switch over to the Roadhog now. Fleta's going to need to touch, get that overtime. He does. But still, being forced to stay on point here is really rough. It's going to mean Heesu is going to be relatively contested. And oh, that's such a good stick.
And now Carpe, you get Ashe out of the fight. You don't have to be worried about getting one-tapped. Heesu from the front, Carpe from the back. The Dragons, they cannot withstand the flank. And the Fusion going, no, we're not going to lose this in 2 rounds straight. Let's go to round 3.
I mean, Carpe is just the obvious MVP of this round. I mean, just a ridiculous performance, whether they were, whether he was putting up frags on the mid fight or getting them back into that retake, pulsing the Ashe through the Transcendence. I mean, he just found that exact right target every time. For Carpe, it goes beyond the mechanics. I mean, it feels strange to say this, but it's like, of course he's going to stick every pulse bomb. Of course he's going to hit the one clips with the nano. Like, you know Carpe's going to do those things. But what impressed me this round was how tactical he was. He's always targeting the right player, always finding that exact weak spot for the Dragons. You know, especially think about in that last moment when he came back in with the pulse bomb from behind while Shanghai was trying to retake. You know, Carpe kind of had his pick of the litter there. He could have gone for the Ana, could have gone for the Mercy, but why does he choose the Ashe in that circumstance? Well, it's because the res is down, and he knows that if he forces that Mercy to res or forces her to wait that ability out, and then as long as Ashe isn't alive, there's no threat onto Carpe's own life. So getting the Pulse Bomb in the Ashe is the most important kill because it means then Carpe can just go get more with the Pulse Pistols. So sometimes removing that key threat is actually higher impact than killing, you know, what might traditionally be a bigger kill like a support, like a Mercy.
And it's very interesting overall and just kind of the broader sort of metagame here of wondering who the Fusion would be running, right? Where a lot of people going in just based on how the Fusion played the playoffs. Carpe did not see a whole lot of playtime. And yet now we're here on Grand Finals weekend. You're down to the Final 4. And the Fusion go, okay, we're up against the Shanghai Dragons. Again, a team that many people see as the best in the entire league. What do? Well, we're going to change our strategy. We're going to run something that makes sense, and we're going to run something that incorporates Carpe because this is the team leader. This is who we think is going to bring us over the top when needed most in the highest pressure of situations. And so far, yeah, it was just this last round where Carpe really came alive, but it was a phenomenal performance as we just saw. And now the Fusion of proving that they can hold even with the Dragons so far.
Definitely, and you know, in the past when we've seen Carpe come into this roster, it has been for the Ashe, right? It's been Heesu playing that Tracer Sombra hybrid role for the team, but I think this look makes a ton of sense, especially with Carpe's playing like this on Tracer. I mean, we know he's been good at Tracer, but I mean, that round on Mecha Base was absolutely absurd. I don't know if he missed any pulse bombs, like not that I saw, which is, I mean, that's completely ridiculous. Sometimes that ultimate is a bit of a throwaway. You know, even the best players are only going to have, you know, maybe a high percentage, but it's almost never going to be the case that you're always finding the perfect pulse bomb, and it's always on the key threat, and then you're always getting the cleanup frag. So just the consistency from Carpe, the veteran presence, you know, we know he has that because he can perform on clutch circumstances in Widow and you know, these backline heroes, but I think Tracer just takes that up a notch when you're not only getting the frags, but you're the initiator, you're leading the team in on that Tracer. It can be much more difficult to do. It's pretty exciting to see.
Well, you know, with all that being said, we've talked enough. Let's hear from the players just how pumped up they are fighting each other here in the moment.
The Shanghai Dragons have done it.
a ridiculous fight for Fusion.
Poko answers back.
그냥 저희가 이제 아시아 북미 누가 더 윈지 먼저 갈릴 수 있는 그런 첫 경기이기 때문에 저희가 이겨서 이제 그 두 번째 경기 전까지는 저희가 이제 아시아가 더 우위에 있다는 걸 먼저 보여드리겠습니다.
They definitely have their flaws. I think as a team we're just 100% better.
제가 사실 경기를 이제 퓨전 대 쇼크는 이제 다 봤는데 솔직히 수준 보니까 좀 별거 없더라고요. 그래서 쉽게 이길 것 같아요.
I mean, I don't want to be too cocky for someone on bench.
Absolutely insane from Fleta. What a perfect set of circumstances there for Fusion.
감독님이 이제 북미 팀들이 넘어오면은 저희 아시아 팀들한테 많이 이렇게 털릴 거라고 하셨는데 저도 그 말에 동의합니다.
Shanghai need to be a little less confident. I think they're going to be surprised at how good the NA teams are when we get to scrim them.
살짝 오만하신 자존심 같아.
Alarm gives him the slurp.
북미가 아시아보다 훨씬 강팀이라는 걸 꼭.
There's no team comp Shanghai can play that we won't be able to mirror them and just be better on all 6 roles.
FunnyAstro just sprawling down here in the trenches finds 2.
Something I can say pretty confidently actually.
상하이 드래곤즈 이제 북미 팀들을 이제 혼내줄 좀 준비가 됐다.
LeeJaeGon is shutting things down.
맞으면은 아시아한테 맞으면은 좀 깜짝 놀랄 거라고 생각합니다.
Yeah, I hope we're gonna be the one slapping them.
Fearless is just cleaving everybody like a monster. Poko comes up with a triple.
이번 그랜드 파이널에 대해서 저희 상하이는 우승을 기대하고 있습니다.
Void right there on the fall through.
Coming into grand finals, our expectations are to win. We wouldn't have traveled to Korea for any other reason.
I don't know. I mean, every time we're like watching Asian game, we find it very messy and very unorganized. So I don't know. Maybe they're not as good as they think they are.
Fighting.
So it's just a little bit of banter between the two teams where it's playoffs, and again, things could not be higher stakes or higher tension for any of the players involved. But you know what, Jake? The pause is just about over, and we're ready to go back in.
Yeah, these players, you know, they're all experienced, play at the highest level. They're no strangers to a little bit of trash talk, a little bit of passion, getting a little bit more invested in these matches than normal. And another pause. So unfortunate.
Okay.
Looks like LeeJaeGon drops the 4 Ps. That's, he really needs a pause.
Yeah, that was intensely paused what we saw there. And also, I mean, I just have to take issue a little bit with the scriptwriters. Wolf and Achilleos are not casting today. That's tomorrow. We're not supposed to be getting these pauses. That's their thing. We're not trying to steal their bit, but here we are. 2 pauses, it just happens. Maybe we're just taking one for them so they can have a match free of pausing.
And, honestly, I think these pauses, they add a little bit of weight to this map, at least from a mental perspective. Obviously it doesn't change anything in terms of actually, the mathematics of the series. But ultimately, I think as a player, when you end up sitting, brooding in this 1-1 situation, if you can come out and have some momentum on this round 3, that's all you're going to remember. And if you get stomped in round 3, that is also all you're going to remember. So it actually, this little mental reset can affect the series, at least in the sense of the mental momentum, how people are feeling going into that next map. So honestly, I wouldn't be shocked to see whichever team wins this final round of Busan to get a little bit of a mental boost and maybe snowball that into a second map win or at least a strong performance on their opponent's map pick.
Well, as a pro player, of course, you are in these situations a lot where you're in a tournament-style format and you're in a sort of make-or-break match where, okay, yeah, it can go to lower bracket, but, the stakes are very high. And how important is it to win the first control map where, yeah, everything aside from, okay, we won the first map, that's great, but, go a little bit deeper into the mental aspect here for a team. Just how important is that momentum?
I'm glad you asked, well, because the first control map, not only is it the momentum, it's starting the series, showing your strength, it goes beyond that. I mean, there's always that thought in the back of your mind, if this does go to Game 5, we will be going back to control, right? And I think knowing that as a player, you really want to have the first control in your back pocket. At least then, when you do get to map 5, if you do get to map 5, you're in that position to be like, well, come on, guys, we won the first control map, we just do it again, right? Obviously, reality is never that simple, but I think that does matter a lot. It does give you just a little bit more confidence if the series goes long.
Well, we are going to be taking a quick break as the players sort things out. 4 Ps means it's a bigger pause, but we'll be right back to finish out this map.
사실 내 팀이라고 해서 그렇게 뭔가 더 이겨야 된다, 더 해야 된다 하면은 사실 실수가 더 많이 나온다고 생각을 해서 사실 그런 건 없고요. 그냥 모든 경기에 다 똑같이 그냥 저희가 할 거에만 집중을 하는 편입니다. 네, 제 이름은 이제 김병선이고요. 나이는 22살이고 이제 남양주라는 곳에서 왔는데 이제 오버워치를 시작하게 된 계기는 이제 그때가 고등학교 3학년 이제 플래시럭스라는 그런 에이펙스라는 그때 경기 거기 1시드권을 가지고 있는 그런 팀이 있어서 거기서 한번 해보고 싶어서 그때부터 이제 프로를 하기로 마음을 먹었던 것 같아요. 이게 이제 서울 다이너스티라는 팀에 제가 좀 저희 플래시럭스 코치님이 당시 그때 서울 다이너스티 때 좀 얘기를 해서 이제 테스트를 볼 수 있겠냐라고 한 후 제가 이제 가서 테스트를 봤거든요. 잘 달렸다고 생각을 했는데 후반에 가서는 되게 다들 지치기도 했고 좀 다른 이유도 있고 해서 경기가 잘 풀리지 않아가지고 2018년에는 좀 아쉬웠고 또 그 다음 연도 2019년에는 좀
Seoul Dynasty, they need to get the payload, they need to win this fight, and they're not doing it. And Seoul Dynasty, their season is over.
A win for the Gladiators. The Dynasty is not starting this year.
또 새로운 팀원들하고 또 합을 맞추면서 출발은 좋다고 생각을 했는데 그때도 마지막에
And that's it. The Hongjo Spark will advance, and Seoul Dynasty is done.
둘 다 2018, 2019 시즌에는 둘 다 좀 처음에 시작은 좋았지만 마무리가 좀 안 좋았던 것 같아요. 그렇게 하다 보니까 그냥 팀에 오게 된 것 같아. 상하이에. 일단 상하이가 마음에 든 점은 당연히 뭐 이런 뭔가 지원 같은 것도 있고 당연히 이제 첫 순위로 봐야 되는 게 같이 할 팀원들이 나와 같이 잘 할 수 있는 그런 팀원들인가를 봤는데 상하이는 충분히 그럴 수 있다고 생각을 해서 왔던 것 같아요. 그런 걸 어필을 하는 편인 것 같아. 원래 자기 걸 어필하고 자기 걸 자기가 원하는 대로 플레이했을 때 좀 게임이 잘 풀린다고 생각을 하는데 그때는 제가 그러지 못해서 좀 더 그게 좀 아쉬웠던 것 같아요. 서울 때는.
You are the MVP of the season.
MVP요? 그거는 이제 제가 MVP를 받든 안 받든 당연히 그럴 생각이었고요. 사실 MVP는 이제 저 개인인 거지만 이제 팀의 우승은 나머지가 다 행복할 수 있는 거기 때문에 저는 그게 당연히 우선이라고 생각을 하고 지금도 그렇게 할 수 있도록 열심히 다들 하고 있습니다.
The headshot after headshot after headshot.
이제 뭐 저희가 누구랑 경기를 한다거나 이럴 때 저희 팀을 이제 거의 창과 방패라고 하면 거의 창으로 표현을 하시는데
I do not believe what we have just witnessed. The Shanghai Dragons are elite.
근데 저희가 아무래도 팀이 되게 공격적인 것도 잘하고 그런 조합도 잘하기 때문에 저도 약간 그렇게 생각을 하고 있어요.
Fleta, when he's on the map, nothing is impossible.
오버워치 리그 이제 2020 시즌 챔피언이 되면 이제 그 챔피언 하나만 바라보고 모든 팀들이 이제 1년 정도를 되게 노력을 해서 하는 건데 그 1년의 노력의 시간을 다 보상받는 그런 기분 좋은 하루가 될 것 같아요.
Things are heating up here at Grand Finals weekend. ZP here with Jake. And you take a look at the matchup so far, it's all about the superstars. On one hand, you have Fleta, the T-Mobile MVP, one of the best players in the league all season long, up against Carpe, one of the most fearsome players in the league and the team leader of the Philadelphia Fusion. And Jake, between these two players, it has been craziness.
Both players putting out a lot. Carpe getting a lot more finished kills, though. And, I mean, look at that stat. Doesn't it just jump out to you, ZP? 100% pulse bomb attach rate. That's ridiculous.
Yep.
I mean, in 2 rounds of COD, that is not normal. You know, Fleta with 50%, that's a typical stat line. That's a strong tracer stat line, you know, to be having 50% attach rate on pulse bomb. That's not a bad stat. Fleta, he's not playing poorly. Carpe, though, 100%. I mean, he's going not just for the safe sticks, not just, you know, put it on the Roadhog when he gets hooked. No, he's, you know, blink 180ing onto the Zen, getting the pickoffs on the Ashe time and time again. So if Carpe keeps landing sticks this consistently, then I think Shanghai are in big trouble because that's so high impact on Tracer. Those pulse bomb burst damage kills, you know, Transcendence means nothing. A lot of times your tank heals mean nothing. It's just so much burst damage coming in if you can land that stick.
You know, the thing I love about that stat is that over the course of the match, you said it multiple times, and you know, normally it's a caster thing going like, okay, I haven't seen him miss any, but in the back of your head you're thinking, surely, he must be missing a few. And then we get here finally to the stat line and it goes, oh, he actually didn't miss any. 100%, and you're completely right. I mean, that's a ridiculous stat where, look, Pulse Bomb, a lot of people, when they look at it, it's an impactful ultimate, but, you know, as casters, we see a Pulse Bomb get used, it does a gay thing, we go, okay, it's just a Pulse Bomb. You know, you don't always expect it to get value. It changes the value of Tracer as a hero in general when a Tracer can go out there and hit literally every single Pulse Bomb. I'd still expect that average to come down, but it's just a testament to how good Carpe has been so far.
Yeah, you know, it feels like you look at that stat, you're like, surely he can't keep doing this. You know, like no one can do that forever. I mean, that's the rational way to look at it, but we're talking about Carpe here, remember. So sometimes rational, I think, is going to give you the wrong result. This guy does not make mistakes, at least apparently from my perspective. And this DPS partner in Heesu as well, they're following up on each other so effectively.
It's just a dirty 1-2 combo that we saw there. Like I said, Carpe from the back, Heesu from the front. The Dragons must find a way to keep control here. Map 1 will fall away as Heesu already off on the flank, looking for what he can find.
And Fury going to make the switch over to the D.Va, but it's Shanghai who take first blood here on this round, cutting down Heesu before the point is even ready. Fleta finds the second, and this D.Va is not paying off at all for Fury. Alarm as well in the Zenyatta, a lot more aggressive potential from that hero, can get a lot of damage, but I worry for the Zen is how is he going to be able to survive the pressure from Stand 1 and Fleta? I mean, that's a really dangerous dive combination, and even if you are hard-pocketed by your Mercy, you can still just be bursted down through those heals.
Well, I mean, it's a Jonak strategy at that point. You go, okay, I'm going to burst you down before you do anything. I do think, though, the Fusion are starting off on a bad foot here, where Heesu went off for the flank, the Dragons were able to catch it, and the Fusion just got pushed back. And now it's not getting any better. Both Fury and Sado very low. The Dragons punishing the front line, and even down the back, Alarm gets picked off. And, you know, I think you're right, though, is that it's going to be difficult for Alarm, especially if Fleta's able to do this.
Nice accretion from Void, followed up by the damage, and you know we heard Fleta in that video talking about, you know, his team is the spear, they're not the shield, and they're certainly looking like it on this round. It's an explosive start, and they've been doing this all without ultimates, so just a pretty ridiculous place to be. FunnyAstro does have a Valk, but just going to be matched by LeeJaeGon, and then you're going to be pushing into Diem's Infrasight, and just pushing into a defensive Widow with a 50% Infrasight advantage is brutal. This is going to be almost certainly 99 for Shanghai if they clean up this fight.
I mean, the Dragons are already at 60%. The Fusion looks so slow right now, and it's because of how the Dragons have been running the neutral game, keeping them back. Diem under a bit of pressure, a little bit of grapple. Ends up getting healed up. Still looking for it. Fleta, meanwhile, in the back, has the Pulse Bomb. The Dragons are bending a little bit far back, but the Fusion are still very far from actually taking this point. Stand 1 and Void pretty low, and LeeJaeGon down, Alarm. Explosive power coming out of your support, has the Transcendence in reserve, and this is a fight the Fusion must win now.
Yeah, it is a must-win fight, but still both tank ults and the nano boost, so it might only be one healer, but Izayaki, he can put out so many heals from this on, and he's playing in this center map position. It's going to be an aggressive nano onto Fleta. Fleta can't quite find a target just yet. Alarm being very evasive, does pop the trance at the last second, and beautiful plays from the Zenyatta, nullifying the power of that nano boost, and Philadelphia wins the fight in the tank line.
Heesu down, though. The Dragons not giving up without even more of a fight. Alarm, though, zone defense. The DPS coming out from your Rookie of the Year. As the Fusion try and hang on, they lose Fury, though, and that's bad. He had the Flux in reserve. Not going to be able to use it until he gets back. His Void goes wild. Takes down Carpe, but so's Alarm. We were wondering about the Zen pick. Alarm making it work here, Jake, but it's on such a razor's edge.
And Void, you know, this guy, he earned his Roll Star distinction largely off of his ridiculous Sigma play earlier on in the season, mostly in the double shield comp. So to see him back out on this hero, now he's just flexing, but Carpe still alive, still kicking. Shutting down Diem's going to give a lot more space to Heesu. See if they can follow this up with a second pick, and there it is. Heesu does get that cleanup frag.
And Carpe right now bouncing around. Pulse Bomb definitely going to be used here, I think, if the Dragons stay in the fight. Sado out of it, but this is looking far better for the Fusion. They've hit the point of critical mass where the Dragons have to back out. And now you look at the overall progress. Yeah, the Dragons hit 99, but the Fusion could still very well bring this back, Jake, especially if the Transcendence comes online.
They definitely can. The infraside advantage has flipped, and if Heesu just lands one more body shot, he's going to have that infraside online. And that's going to be exactly what he needs. Stand one, Fleta, they want to pounce before that crucial moment. And it looks like this backline fight is going to be highly impactful. Carpe also going to take a wrap around to the backline, but he's a lot slower. Fleta and Stand one have a bit of a timing advantage.
The thing is, the Dragons are still taking a long time to set up. Void eating a huge chunk of damage early on. Carpe is still in the setup behind. Don't forget, as the Dragons head in here, Diem, under a bit of pressure, it's Carpe in the back, goes for the pulse bomb, and well, okay, not 100% anymore. Had to end sometime. There's a fusion here now. Game poked down a bit, they're looking for Stand one. Heavy pressure on the Stand one. He's able to back out. And both teams being very careful here, Jake, not to give up the first elimination. It's still 6v6.
Izayaki forced to nade, does drop the nano onto Void, who's going to be so effective on point right now. And the cleanup is there from Diem, 2 and a third from Diem. And this is going to be Shanghai taking the first map of the series. It's all red in the kill feed. And that round just exploded out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, I would say nowhere and also a bit of Void, where Void just came alive. Of course, Void, one of the most impactful players in the tank role this season, proved it there. But on the same note, the Dragons nearly had the Fusion dead to rights, Jake, early in that round. The Fusion brought that back, and it ends up going 99-99. And it's really just a harbinger that this should be a very close series if the rest of the maps are like this control.
It definitely looks that way, ZP. I mean, come on, these maps are going back and forth. Even when a team has the advantage, everything looks like it's going their way. Sometimes these players just make individual performances that defy the laws of Overwatch, you know, change the way you think about the game. You're like, well, maybe if Carpe just, you know, gets a solo kill before the start of the fight, you never know what can happen. And it's the nature of these comps, too, where you're not grouping up as 6, you're not playing in a death ball. There's a lot more randomness and chaos. And I shouldn't call it randomness, though, because it does just come down to the individual skill of the players. And when it's also at such a high level, players can fall so quickly.
They definitely can. But you know what? It is Grand Finals weekend. We have some of the best Overwatch around, and the party's just getting started. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Coca-Cola is the official refreshment of the Overwatch League. The Overwatch League is brought to you by Cheez-It Grooves. Deep flavor, deep crunch. It's a mind crunch. And by TeamSpeak, the official voice supplier of the Overwatch League.
20 teams have dared greatly during the 2020 Overwatch League playoffs, but only 4 remain in the arena.
Shanghai Dragons, they are the first team to lock themselves into the top 4. Seoul Dynasty, though, these guys look absolutely phenomenal.
The Shock complete their journey through the winner's bracket.
The Fusion, they booked their ticket to Korea and see themselves in the Final 4.
It's time for a champion to arise, and one player to be crowned. The 2020 Overwatch League Grand Finals MVP, presented by T-Mobile. T-Mobile will reward the Grand Finals MVP with $100,000. There's a pack of hungry wolves, eager for their prize. Prophet, the 2018 Grand Finals MVP, hopes to bring a championship to his new squad. Choi Hyobin, last season's Grand Finals MVP, returns to defend his title with the reigning champs. And there's challengers new and old, yearning to be the new King of the Hill. History is here for the taking. Glory, $100,000. Who will triumph and become the 2020 T-Mobile Grand Finals MVP? Vote for your Grand Finals MVP on Twitter during the Grand Finals match using the hashtag OWLMVP and tag them by their Twitter handle or in-game tag. You can also vote for your Grand Finals MVP by going to overwatchleague.com/MVP.
T-Mobile wants you to choose the Grand Finals MVP. Vote on October 10th at overwatchleague.com/MVP or on Twitter using hashtag OWLMVP and add the player's battle tag. That's right, you get to be part of the process. And Jake, you know, I look at this and wonder, can Fleta go for the twofer, regular season and Grand Finals? Right now he's making a case.
Oh, it's such a tough call. There's so many incredible players here at Grand Finals weekend. I don't know if you can really call any early favorites. Maybe if I were to just give like a personal hope, I gotta say I wanted to see it as Carpe here because, you know, Carpe, he's been a player everyone knows about his incredible performances in times past, but recently he hasn't been a starter for the Philadelphia Fusion. It's been Ivy and Heesu. That's been the lineup. That's been the DPS roster. But to see Carpe back on Tracer, one of his signature heroes, you know, that he hasn't really been playing too much for a long time, is so exciting. And well, I mean, you know, he is a machine, but also a human, you know, so I missed some pulse bombs in round 3, but I mean, come on. We've all been there. I've been there. A lot more than Carpe.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, you could have stood to be that a little bit more during the talent takedown. You know, a little bit of mercy there would have been great. Those were the times to miss the pulse bombs, Jacob. Just letting you know.
Well, I'll have to settle for my Overwatch League fails. That's good enough. But Carpe not having too many of those, and I think if he just continues on with the consistent performance, we could very much see a close series here. Philly, Kings Row, I think, has been a mainstay for them for quite a long time. They've always liked this map. There's a possibility that they could play maybe more of a more traditional comp here, potentially with like a Zarya Rhine style or even a Reaper. But the fact that Carpe is staying in the roster says to me that maybe not. Maybe it will just be a continuation of these crazy comps, Hog Sigma, Hog Ball.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Fusion, again, it's that weird part where even though the Fusion has had such a deep roster all year long, so comfortable in swapping players, we're a little bit of a restart here, but Carpe is such an incredibly good player and so incredibly clutch that you get to this point in the season and you just wonder, well, wait, do we want to put Carpe on the bench? And, you know, so far from the Fusion, the answer has been no, but they do have the option to swap things up if necessary.
Well, one of the things that I always talk about when I mention Carpe, when you think about this player, is the clutch factor. You know, most players, you're happy if they can just perform consistently in a clutch situation. You know, when the pressure's on, you're just hoping, okay, just do what you normally do. you know, like that's great. That's not something every player can say. A lot of players, you know, in those high pressure situations, they might be very talented, but they just can't quite put it together when, you know, all the eyes are on them, when all the pressure is on. But Carpe is this very unique breed of player who not only does he play consistently under pressure, but he goes above and beyond. It seems like he's playing even better than normal. He has that fifth gear. And it's just something that it's almost impossible to understand. You know, why is this? It's just, I think it's just the nature of Carpe. You know, he's had these moments to remember in Overwatch history, and if he could produce some more of those today, that's exactly what Philadelphia Fusion need to get a leg up on the Shanghai Dragons in this series.
And let's not forget, with as good as Carpe was in the first map, it still wasn't enough. The Dragons still ended up taking it because, you know what, as good as Carpe is, Fleta and Diem have something to say about it on the other side, on top, of course, the incredible tank and support lines of the Dragons. It's close across the board, but now the Fusion, they're on the attack, and it's a double sniper attack here, Jake. Both Heesu and Carpe looking for it.
Yeah, 4 heroes mirrored, but Shanghai, they're running the Ashe and the Zenyatta, which means overall they're going to have a bit less utility, a bit less chance for individual pickoffs, but the raw pressure onto tanks is going to be significantly better for the Shanghai Dragons. Not only do they have the Zen to throw the Discord down and put out damage of his own onto that Sigma shield, but also the Ashe with the Dynamite able to do so much more pressure than Widow. So Heesu and Alarm, they need to actually just make plays in order to justify these picks. And look at Sado making a very
Sado's
sneaky
on a secret
play.
agent mission right now. I had to look at that for a second. I was like, wait, is this bugged? Like, what's going on? It's like, no, you have a stealth hog on the high ground in the back. I really hope this works out because it's just going to be tragic if it doesn't. And, well, he's not stealthy anymore. The Dragons are aware of his presence, but it's buying the rest of the Fusion space to move on in. And, okay, Sado's on the run. He's running.
Yeah, but he's already done so much in this position. He's already created a lot of space for his team. Even just living right now would be a big deal. Void doesn't want to let that happen. Wants to finish off the hog, and he gets the heal off. He's going to win this.
Wait, is he going to win this? This is unbelievable. Sado claims the pub as his own, and the Dragons are just mystified. We're mystified, and Sado's coming back in.
Fury gets picked up by the Gravitic Flux. It is enough to secure the kill, but Heesu strikes back on the Void. Infrasight, though, instantly shut down by Diem, coming across the high ground, and now Stand One just holding W, charging forward. Oh, barely misses that kill on the Hanzo. Comes back and cleans it up, and just barely survives that. That was very dangerous.
All that for nothing. Well, I guess one tick on the point, but mostly nothing. 2 minutes left now for the Fusion, and what was one of the strangest attacks I think we've ever seen. And the Dragons just look clean right now, Jake.
I mean, Shanghai says, you think we're on a double sniper? It's called triple sniper here when we got Izayaki Zen, and that's the power of that Zen to be that next fragger. Alarm on the Ana so far hasn't been able to have that same level of impact. He is coming up on the nano boost, but gonna be awkward to make use of, right? You don't have that Winston, Genji, you know, none of these obvious nano takers. You know, your best bet might be just walking Sado onto the point, giving him a nano, and, you know, hoping for the best. But he is already instantly cut down. That's the power of Discord.
Yep. I think that at some point the Dragons realized, okay, we can't let Sado take a joyride into the backline anymore. We're gonna take him down immediately. But I mean, really, why not let him? It worked out so well the first time for the Dragons, and Jake, it doesn't feel like it, but there's only 1 minute left.
ZP, the Dragons are dangerously close to just running away with this entire series. It is too early to say that, but this fight looks very winnable for Shanghai. And if they do close it out here on first point on King's Row, the mental defeat that would inflict might just be too much. Once again, hooked from Stand One, Discord and the Hanzo follow-up. They're cut down on the push, and they're getting chased right back to the spawn. Void does not want to let them escape, and neither does Stand One. Just absolute destruction on this King's Row defense. I don't want to call it a defense. There's nothing defensive about this defense.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a treasure hunt more than anything else. You know, find the Roadhog in the back is a little bit more of what we're seeing. But now it's come down to this, the final attempt for the Fusion. 18 seconds left to go. Sado's been getting picked off early since his long journey to the back. And now the Fusion look for their opportunity. Fury down immediately. Sado getting focus fired up into the air. Carpe drops the Dragon, takes down Stand One. Stand One, though, immediately going to get res back up. Diem in a great spot. The Dragon's still in control. Izayaki looping out of the hotel. Carpe ends up falling. And this is going to be a first point hold, Jake, barring a miracle from Sado. But that's not going to happen.
It's over, ZP. I mean, Philly, they got absolutely destroyed here. I think one of the critical turning points of that round was when Heesu got 1 kill, popped his Infrasight, and then instantly got cut down by Diem before he could even get his scope up. That's such a huge swing. Infrasight really is that moment where Widow starts to take over when the enemy team doesn't run a Widow in a sniper-based composition. Infrasight is that moment where you're like, oh, we kind of regret not playing Widow. But, well, if you get that Infrasight instantly shut down, then you miss that window, and Heesu just never got another before the end of the round. Those backline shenanigans from Sado did help the team get at least 1 tick, so it is possible that Philly could win this. But I think it's unrealistic, frankly, here. Shanghai Dragons, the win condition is so straightforward for them. They can play something like a Genji. Diem showing it right now. I mean, I wouldn't blame them for not running this or just going with a standard comp, but I wouldn't hate to see Ana and Genji here. Just the potential to get a Nano Blade, lock in the game. Might be a little bit questionable, given that you've got a player like Alarm who could always sleep it, and you've got players like Sado and Fury who could either hit their skill shot or just have an ultimate ready in time to shut down the Nano Blade. So, you know, I think you could look at this both ways, but Shanghai, because of this win condition set out in front of them, they can play the game in a very different way. You know, you don't need to try to win first quickly. You can just bank your ultimates, wait for that one crucial fight. Even if it takes 3 or 4 minutes, you don't really care about that, right? You've got the win condition. It doesn't matter the margin of victory. It's just about getting that tick over the line.
Well, for the Fusion, you laid it out pretty well in regards to what's at stake here. The Dragons are on the verge of running away with the series, and the one way the Fusion can keep it even is having an even better first point hold here than what we just saw from the Dragons a moment ago, but it will require the same as what we saw from Dragons, perfection. But Carpe's down immediately, Fleta, stand 1, both in, and this could be over in a flash.
FunnyAstro finds the red on Sado, though. That's huge impact. Sado finds another onto LeeJaeGon, so FunnyAstro keeps his team alive, getting the clutch res off with the help of Fury, controlling a bit of space, and a beatdown from FunnyAstro. I don't know how that happened, but he does get the kill onto Ana, and now going to be cleanup for the Shanghai Dragons, getting pushed out. Stand 1, looks like he's going to avoid, rather, going to go on a flank journey of his own, and a Sigma in this higher position, very hard to evict. You're just chasing into these orbs constantly.
Well, Void gets hooked in, down the half HP. Sado in danger, just able to take a breather. Carpe there with the support, but pays with his life. Fleta there on the punish. The Dragons pressuring. Astro, though, gets the resurrection off. Sado falling towards the end, and the pressure from the Dragons is overwhelming. They're nearly to the goal here in the Fusion. Do they have anyone left to stay on? It's Fury on the point, gets Nano, but how long can he last? He gets knocked off the point. The Dragons so close to 1 tick. They get the tick. They just need a little bit more. As Fury somehow, some way, still alive on the point. Carpe's back on in, and Fusion hanging on by a prayer right now.
Oh, LeeJaeGon with the pistol. He's going for more. Oh, he's just going to get the res. Nice safe lock in. And the player advantage is just massive here.
That is insane. The Dragons take map 2. And now they're 1 away from sending the Fusion down to the losers bracket. And if you're wondering why the Dragons were the #1 seed in APAC and you didn't watch a whole lot, you just got a taste of it right there.
Absolutely, and I'm worried now my caster prediction might have been a little bit too accurate, talking about that pause, you know, before the final round of Busan, making that final round all the more impactful in terms of momentum. Seems like Shanghai, they're certainly feeling some kind of momentum. This was Philadelphia Fusion's map pick, but you know, if you didn't know that from the progress of the series, you wouldn't have guessed it based on the performances of these two teams. I think Shanghai just looks so incredibly aggressive on the defense. They were constantly charging in, you know, get 1 pick and instantly move in, get a huge slate of cleanup frags to boot. And then on offense, they were able to just trade aggressively, utilizing their spawn advantage to eventually come out on top. You know, Philly is a hard-fought battle. They kept themselves in it for longer than a weaker team would have, but nonetheless, Shanghai find themselves up 2-0 in the series.
All right, well, the Fusion, they're going to have to do their best Dynasty impression, try and come back from a reverse sweep and keep it close. But for now, we send it off to Watchpoint to tell us just how the Fusion can do that.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by HyperX. Unleash your style, unleash your fury with HyperX Fury Memory. And by Coca-Cola, the official refreshment of the Overwatch League. Overwatch League is brought. Welcome to the Game Break presented by Pringles. Wavy, Zoe here, joined by Costa as well as Reinforce. And, well, unfortunately for every Philadelphia Fusion fan out there, the Shanghai Dragons have been stepping it up. They were establishing dominance in that first half as they're taking it to 0 right now. Now, let's talk about some of those individual matchups, because quite frankly, looking at this matchup between the Fusion and the Dragons, there are a lot of individual head-to-heads we would like to take a look at and which could potentially be very interesting. And one of them, of course, has to be Carpe and Fleta. Who got the better end of the stick, Reinforce?
Well, I think for our crunch time presented by ChipSa Grooves, we actually have to take a look at this one, and I think it was really back and forth in map 1. I mean, I think that both players really showed what they're made of. Fleta, of course, is our 2020 Overwatch League Team Mobile MVP, but then also Carpe, who is this legendary Overwatch League player who is known for his hit scan capabilities and really made his presence felt, particularly in round 2 of our opening control map. But if you take a look at the stats, you can see that Fleta edged Carpe out, specifically when it comes to the damage and then also the eliminations, and that is what matters, right? That's how you get the job done. So Fleta on this Tracer, really a force to be reckoned with. I think when you really compare this head-to-head, you often like to think that Carpe, he is going to be the better Tracer and he's going to win this head-to-head matchup. But I actually think that Fleta on this Tracer, combined with Stand 1 on the Wrecking Ball, they had really good team chemistry, and that was a big difference maker on our initial control map.
Yeah, I want to sort of harp in on that as well. I think Fleta really showing why he is the our 2020 MVP and just sort of putting on an absolute clinic. Carpe no slouch, but he's definitely getting the better end of the stick, as you said, Zoe. But I also want to credit the rest of the Dragons team for why this is going so well. I think Stan 1's been doing a phenomenal job on that Wrecking Ball, and their dives have just been better executed, especially on map 1. But, you know, going on to further maps, it definitely sort of went a little bit more in favor of the Shanghai Dragons.
Well, if we're looking at Busan and their performance there, Heesu did stand out, though, if we're looking at the Philly squad here. I think this might have been, at least in map 1, one of his best performances so far in the league.
Yeah, I think you really need to give it to Heesu, because when you think of the Philadelphia Fusion and you think Widowmaker, you think of Carpe. He's the first person that comes to your mind, but you know, when you want to play that Widow Tracer, you really want Carpe to play that style on that Tracer. So Heesu's done a great job of stepping into his shoes, and he really took it to Diem, one of the best hit scans we have in the league. So you've got to give him massive props. As a rookie coming into this year and into this team, he's really stepped up.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely was a bit surprised, actually, by how well Heesu was actually doing on that Widowmaker, because typically we've seen Heesu play a lot of Sombra. Philadelphia Fusion was one of the teams in the North American playoffs that really got away with playing a lot of Sombra Reaper. That's how they took down the LA Valiant, the LA Gladiators, and finally made it over here to the Final Four. But now we're seeing Heesu on this Widowmaker and really showing what he's made of. He's way more flexible than just being a specialization player, and he's really being utilized well here. Of course, going into King's Row, Shanghai, though, they were way more dominant when it came to this pick composition.
Yeah, Costa, I would like your thoughts here on Izayaki on that Zen on defense. We were rather impressed as we were watching the game together.
Yeah, this is becoming a bit of a common theme. We saw this in our first series as well. The Zenyatta from Izayaki is just so oppressive against these Roadhog Sigma compositions that every time the Philadelphia Fusion tried to walk forward, they were just taking so much damage. It was almost impossible for them to get that space without getting picked, or just taking so much damage that they couldn't even approach. They didn't have many team fights. They probably got, 3 or 4 team fights in that 4-minute attack, and they just got held at every single moment. So great heads-up play by the Shanghai Dragons, and I think I want to see more adaptation from these offensive teams every time they hit this wall.
Well, Reinforce, what do you want to see as we're heading into our third map, which has been picked, of course, by the currently losing team, the Philadelphia Fusion Volskaya?
Well, I actually think that you sort of can continue what you've been playing already. Maybe we'll see some Tracer being utilized. You can actually play that hero here on Volskaya. But for the most part, if they continue to play sort of like a double sniper composition, they are probably going to be disadvantaged because the Shanghai Dragons are so very good at that composition. But I still think that this is the meta at this point. You cannot really try to force any Winston compositions or Sombra Reaper. So I don't really think that the Philadelphia Fusion will be entirely in their comfort zone in any of these types of compositions. I think you have to rely on what the meta currently is, and that is the double sniper composition, or if you want to play a Wrecking Ball and Tracer composition. So I think the Fusion will be forced to stick with that and then try to change up the tactics, maybe a little bit of the movement and synchronize the dives a little bit better, and maybe that can turn out to be a difference maker for the Philadelphia Fusion squad.
Well, let's see if they can get it done as we're heading over to map number 3, Volskaya. Currently, Shanghai Dragons are up 2-0 against their opposition, the Philadelphia Fusion. But this might be the start of a big comeback for the Fusion. Let's see, let's find out as we're heading back over to Jake and ZP. The Overwatch League is brought to you by Pringles Wavy. Big crunch, big flavor. The Overwatch League is brought to you by Xfinity, the preferred internet provider of the Overwatch League.
The life of an Overwatch League pro. It's as glamorous as you can imagine. Their intense gaming is only interrupted by photo shoots from the adoring press, lavish red carpet events, sampling international cuisines, and intense hygiene regimens. So, whether the top teams from North America qualified for grand finals, these jet setters traveled in style all the way to South Korea. So, how do these international superstars do government-mandated quarantine? Let's find out on this edition of
Welcome to my humble quarantine abode. I'll show you around a little bit. I would start outside, but then I would get deported.
Hello, I'm Moth. Welcome to the hotel room I'm quarantining in for the next 2 weeks.
Poko here. Today I'm gonna be doing a room tour of my quarantine hotel room.
Joey, I can't see you. I'll see the house.
Wait. This is my room.
Let me start with the bathroom. It's a pretty nice bathroom. I was saying. A toilet. A shower. A weight machine. I don't know what you call that.
Machine des poids.
It's broken because I think they don't want you to see how much weight you're losing.
I mean, first, nothing too special. There's the bathroom. There's me. There's a shower.
They gave us a bunch of shampoo and conditioner and body wash and stuff.
Oh my! I got pretty lucky. I got a pretty large room here. We've got the bed. That's where I sleep.
Over there is the main room with my desk and bed and chair. They gave us a bunch of snacks over here. Pretty much just trying to ration all this to last me 2 weeks. Hopefully Blizzard will send me some instant noodles soon.
Since I come home, my mother made me some food that was so good. I'm eating best food, so they're gonna jealous of me.
And right here is where the magic happens. I got the dual monitor setup. I got the monitor there, laptop there, keyboard here.
Over here is my setup where I've been scrimming and streaming and stuff.
So you may have seen that my laptop is on some toilet paper.
Ordinateur portable sur papier toilette.
It's not optimal, but that do the job.
I eat my meals mostly at this little table since my desk is kind of used up. I'm saving this banana.
Also a phone that if in the middle of the stream I want to call the reception.
This is Jeff from the Overwatch team.
There's a window here, but it doesn't open up, so there's no fresh air.
And I got actually not a terrible view. I think I see people over there. Can't leave my room though, and the windows don't even open.
Over there is like the view on the airport. You can see the fly coming out and it's an airport. What do you want me to say? And that's gonna be it.
That's about all I got, ladies and gentlemen.
Hope you enjoyed.
Thank you.
It has been an intense grand finals weekend so far. The Fusion and the Dragons, though, it's been so intense that they need a little bit more time to prepare as we get ready to head into Volskaya Industries. But before that, let's take a look back at how all our 4 grand finals weekend teams got here.
A new season.
Here we go. What up, DC?
A clean slate.
There's been so many new players, so many shakeups.
A worldwide arena. This is the T-Mobile Road to Grand Finals.
New York City, let me hear you! Can anybody stop them? The answer is no!
This team is chock full of potential.
Oh, that was dominant.
Carpe comes back with a Widowmaker. Such a bold call.
It's looking pretty good so far out of Deadeye. Oh my word, from the top ropes.
That is filth. This is an absolute stomp.
Houston Outlaws find their first win of the season. One haymaker after another. Soon turns the fight the Pencil Turtle. They take it.
The atmosphere in here is electric.
The Overwatch League announced that it will be canceling the home match events for the rest of March as well as April.
When the pandemic struck, we, the world, all of us, needed heroes to turn to bring us together and to connect us online.
The matches will still be played, just not in front of the live audiences.
Our production team has been doing incredible work over the last couple of weeks to set us on a path where we'll be able to broadcast every single one of those matches.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us here at the Overwatch League.
I'm so glad Overwatch League is back.
We are broadcasting live from our bedrooms, living rooms, hallways, wherever it might be.
It's good to be back. You know, the world's a little bit crazy out there, so hopefully we can provide a well-deserved, well-needed digital reprieve for you.
Are you ready?
They keep the dream alive!
I'm excited that not only is Overwatch League back, but our Chinese teams are back.
It feels like it's a brand new season to me.
The Blossom takes on Gushui, and the Dragons, are they about to do it? Lip with the 4K to the back!
Birdring comes in, the Ash play, it's filthy!
We are in May, and that means we have a end-of-month tournament.
The May Melee about to begin, knockout round play.
The Shanghai Dragons have done it. I cannot believe what we have witnessed, the reverse sweep.
That's all it's going to take for San Francisco. They are your victors here of the Overwatch League May Melee.
Diem and LeeJaeGon against the world, but they cannot get there. The Guangzhou Charge have done it. They will take the grand final, shutting down the Shanghai Dragons.
The Paris Eternal shutting down the Fusion. They denied them of their crown. The Paris Eternal take the series.
The clock has struck midnight on the Countdown Cup, and the Shock are victorious.
Shanghai Dragons assert themselves as the best team in the APAC region, potentially the best in the world.
So, that's it. That's it for the regular season.
What more could you ask for?
We can't wait to see you for the start of the Overwatch League playoffs.
This one is going to be epic.
Deadeye to start, Blizzard coming through. EMP manages to catch on the 5, but Lip with the Deadeye takes down 3.
What you've all been waiting for.
In a season where metal was tested and rivalries were forged, 4 teams emerged from the Crucible. The Seoul Dynasty.
We expect great things from them, but again, they have not really soared to the highest of heights that maybe was expected of them.
Throw the seedings out the window.
It's so impressive that Seoul have been able to have this turnaround.
Seoul Dynasty seem to be able to make any composition work.
The Philadelphia Fusion.
Always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
It's really scary if you're a Final Four team looking at this Fusion team, because I don't think anything is ever going to catch the Philadelphia Fusion off guard.
They really, really deserve that spot in the top 4, and I can't wait to see what they have in store for us at the Grand Finals event.
The San Francisco Shock.
They look as good as ever, and it doesn't really seem there's anything stopping them, no matter the meta.
It's absurd. The way this roster is built and the way that they can adapt to every meta, San Francisco Shock is the meta.
What more can you ask from the Shock, really?
And the Shanghai Dragons.
They got to be feeling pretty damn good.
No team will ever be perfect, but how close they get at times. It's jaw-dropping. I look at this team as the best team in the world. It's NA versus Shanghai.
The long road of this season has led us here. The payload is almost delivered, and the final checkpoint is in our sights. Who will claim the honor and glory to become your Overwatch League 2020 Grand Finals champions? And who will be the T-Mobile Grand Finals MVP?
Of course, there's a lot of ways to enjoy watching the Overwatch League, but what better way than watching it with a whole bunch of fellow fans, seeing your team get win after win? It's been a pretty good year for the Shanghai Dragons, Jake.
Yeah, and for a lot of these fans who've been following the team since Season 1, I think the payoff is all the sweeter, you know, having suffered through those tough times. Now you really get that well-deserved reward of a team looking incredibly strong, looking like, right now, the favorite to win it all. I mean, up 2-0 against the Philadelphia Fusion. Yes, Busan was very close, but Kings Row was not, ZP. So for the Shanghai Dragons fans, there's a lot to celebrate.
Yeah, and I mean, the one thing I'll say here to give a little bit of hope to the Fusion fans at home is that Kings Row also just could have been just a tragic, you know, combination of circumstances there where you have this crazy Sado play, which wasn't bad on its own, but it doesn't pan out, and I feel like it's a hard thing to recover from momentum-wise on a team when you sort of commit to a spur-of-the-moment play like that. It doesn't work out. You get pushed back, and you know I believe the Fusion are a lot better than what we saw on Kings Row, but they've run out of extra lives now. If they lose another map, that's it. They're getting knocked down into losers bracket, so now is the time to show the world what they got.
And, you know, for the Fusion side, you know, to go to Volskaya Industries, this is a map where not only do you have the option of putting Carpe back on Tracer, but also Heesu's Widow is going to be more relevant. I felt like it was a little bit of a struggle to get enough value on Kings Row against the Ashe Hanzo combination, which is, I would say, the rarest scene of all the two sniper combinations. Very rare do we see Hanzo and Ashe paired together. Shanghai made it work incredibly well, made it look very well practiced. Clearly, it's a strategy they love in this tank meta, but going to Volskaya Industries, I think it's very unlikely that we'll see that repeated. Widow's so dominant on this map, the sight lines are much longer than Kings Row.
And I mean, the interesting thing too, when you look at both these teams running sniper-oriented compositions, is that things do change on a fight-by-fight basis, right? Where oftentimes, you know, the margin between a clean team fight win and just total defeat is literally one player's crosshair just being slightly off target, which is why I think you look back at the last map, I believe the Fusion are better than what we saw, but it's a little bit of cold comfort because you look at the Dragons, they are the Dragons. They are one of the most fearsome teams in the league, so the Fusion still have to dig deep, find that next level. We saw the Dynasty rally earlier today. It wasn't quite enough to take it over the Shock, but they did turn what was looking like a sweep into a 5-map series. And now let's see if the Fusion can do the very same.
Yeah, it's definitely too soon to call, but Shanghai going to make me eat my words. Going to, again, bring out this Hanzo Ashe. Maybe this is the answer to Philadelphia Fusion. I feel like what makes this comp so effective is that when Sado gets hooked by Stand 1, which, you know, happened quite a lot on Kings Row, to be fair, it's just the Discord Orb plus Hanzo plus Ashe. You have such an incredible amount of burst damage. The enemy Hog doesn't get that moment to pop a heal or throw a rebuttal hook. He just gets instantly vaporized. So the power of all this damage you're running in the Shanghai Dragons is not to be understated. And Heesu going to be on the Sombra this time. Very interesting choice.
Yeah, I mean, the Sombra, well, doesn't just last for long. It's back to double sniper. And this is where, if you're a Fusion fan at home, you're looking towards Heesu and Carpe going, please, land that one shot. Put Fleta on the ground, and okay, it's actually the sleep dart from Alarm. Again, Rookie of the Year, but fall through's not going to be there. Still, Fusion looking for the opportunity off the sleep dart, applying pressure all the while.
Yeah, both teams poking, but that should favor Dragons. They've got a lot more spam pressure, unless some sort of opening pick. Look at Sado, just absolutely vaporized.
Yeah, Sado got too far away from the actual inner part there. He couldn't take cover when he was taking damage, and as you say, got vaporized, immediately deleted. And now the Dragons, they get to go forward, they get a few extra staggers, and 1 minute burned off the clock.
And, you know, based on the way Kings Row went, I'm starting to get pretty worried for Philadelphia Fusion. Shanghai, they're holding close at the choke, which minimizes the value that Heesu can get on this Widow. This is the longest sightline he can take, and what's he finding? Just a Sigma shield to poke at. Headshot will be huge, but he doesn't connect it this time.
Mouse movement, not great there. Alarm already out of the fight. Stand 1 connecting, but Carpe finds Fleta. But will they be able to secure the kill? No. In fact, Carpe immediately getting punished. Diem picking off where Fleta left off. And the Dragons just continuing to dominate. And oh boy, this is not looking ideal for the Fusion.
Yeah, to say the least. Heesu gonna have an Infrasight up soon. That could be that difference maker. Not only does it enable himself and Carpe, but also helps Sado and Fury find those hooks and accretion connections. But no one's giving themselves up to these jump shots. Great discipline from Shanghai. It's really giving them extra safety.
All right, recon side is up. The Fusion making another attempt. Stand one, sleeping on the job early. Carpe, though, falling to Fleta again. The Dragons keeping up the pressure, and even with the Resurrection coming in, it's not going to be great for staying in the fight. Now, the Fusion, they are looking to pick up scraps. The problem is, the Res is still there. Fleta's back into the fight. The Dragon Strike goes down Main Street, and Stand One's still somehow alive!
The Roadhog heal kept him up, but LeeJaeGon almost fell there, just barely survived with the self-heal from the Valkyrie, so really grinding the limit there, but I think he has to take that risk, so well calculated by him. And you know, when the ult trade ends, Shanghai, they're still in control of this choke point, and they've got a few more tools to work with. Fury hooked in, pressured down, forced out of the choke with all of his cooldowns out. And Stand One in this corner, he's so dangerous with Hanzo right behind him. There's a ton of burst behind his hog hook.
Takes down Sado, no whole hog required. And look at the time, Jake. The Dragons 1 minute away from a fated matchup against the Shock tomorrow in the winner's bracket. And the Fusion are looking all but done.
Oh, they're just falling apart here, ZP. The chokehold. This is something we've seen from the Shanghai Dragons actually time and time again in past metas. They used to love to play this comp with Afara holding the choke. They are so good at these aggressive holds on defense where they're attacking you as soon as you come to the choke point. They're not just sitting back and, you know, holding high grounds around the point. They are holding the choke. They are staying forward constantly, and this is a risky strategy. You know, one false move, you will get cut down, but when you're so tight and disciplined as the Dragons are, it pays off big time.
Carpe down first, the big gun for the Fusion right in the fight. Final 13 seconds as Fleta's Dragon just eats the Fusion alive. Fusion, they're not going to get another opportunity at this. Now on a whim and a prayer. The Dragons, though, there's no chance for miracles. They take down the Fusion here in this first round, and technically something that the Fusion could still draw. But, Jake, it's not looking good.
It is not looking good, ZP, to say the least, for the Philadelphia Fusion. They still have hopes alive to draw this map, somehow bring out the reverse sweep to end all reverse sweeps. But certainly looking like a trip to the lower bracket here. Shanghai, you know, I think them playing this comp here with that Hanzo and Ashe, with the Zenyatta as well and Izayaki, I mean, it seems like a minor difference, right? You're still playing a sniper comp and you're only switching an Ana to a Zen. You know, I think from an outside perspective, a novice perspective, you might look at these comps and think they're relatively similar. But these key adjustments are actually having huge impact, and I think it's making a big difference, or will make a big difference to the meta. I think Shock should be studying this game. They should be anticipating this comp, because this is Shanghai's ace in the hole. The fact that they have this incredible amount of tank damage means that Sado and Fury, it feels like they're struggling to have any impact at all. They're constantly being cut down, being bursted down before they're ready. And that's because Shanghai, they're not relying on Widowmaker headshots. Even if Hanzo and Ashe just pour in body shot damage, that's enough. That's plenty in order to secure the game, in order to secure those tank bursting kills. So, you know, in a game with very limited survivability on your tanks, that damage becomes all the more important.
Yeah, I mean, the problem that the Fusion have is that they're running double sniper, but at no point were Carpe and Heesu both able to get eliminations at the same time, and Resurrection was just ruining their lives on their attack. Now they're on the defense, and much as the Dragons were just perfect on their defense, so must the Fusion be. They don't want to get knocked into the loser's bracket for tomorrow, which of course would place the Fusion against the Dynasty. The Dragons now on the way forward. Not much to go to a W.
Fusion, they're not holding the choke. I assume this because it's not something they practice, not something they're comfortable with. But Shanghai already moving closer to the point that Philly ever got on their offense. Carpe's pick on LeeJaeGon is absolutely critical, though.
Carpe out of the fight. The Dragons, though, they're down more here thus far. Heesu getting decent damage on the Roadhog. The Resurrection is there. Fusion holding strong thus far, but that is a big pick off FunnyAstro out of the fight. And even the Fusion at 5 here, there's going to be a window where Astro won't be in the fight at the very beginning. The Dragons, though, they don't necessarily have to take it. I think they will just wait, and it'll end up being a 6v6, but do have the option to play fast.
Yeah, nice move by Carpe coming back to pick up his ally here. It's going to make a big difference. FunnyAstro hitting the super jump over the high ground as well. So just perfect mercy mechanics there. Going to get him back into the fight so that his team is never fighting 5v6. But as you said, Dragons, they're going to get a free trip through the choke point. Not going to be worried about any early contest. That's something to be proud of.
Dragons, 2.5 minutes ago, the Fusion nearly to the halfway point, but it feels like an eternity if you're a Fusion fan watching this now, hoping and praying for some form of comeback. Heesu using the recon site. The Dragons, they have to respect this, Jake, and they also have the time to do so.
A lot of pressure onto the Roadhog. He barely dodges his sleep. And Heesu with the Infrasight can be really deadly here, but doesn't find any confirmed pickoffs. And Shanghai taking a nice split on this map, making it awkward for Philadelphia Fusion to control them. Look at Sado, finds himself in this awkward corner.
It's a Flux Dragon in close quarters, and that is perfect setup for Carpe. Gives him an easy 3-piece. And now, Jake, as Carpe continues to pile it on, there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. A minute 45 left to hold here for the Fusion to force the draw.
It is looking possible here, and that's a beautiful combination. The Flux in that small tunnel just is a perfect setup for the Dragon Strike. However, though, I would caution fans of Philadelphia Fusion not to count their chickens just yet. Shanghai, they're banking up their ultimates. They're playing for that highest % win condition, just giving yourself that 6-ult fight. It might be in overtime, but it's coming. Nano onto both Roadhogs, and the instant burst onto Fury, whole hogging the enemy hog into the corner. Good trade so far for Dragons.
The Fusion, they need an equalizer, they need it quick. Sado takes down Izayaki, that's huge. The healing decimated on the side. The Fusion, still 4 left. Fury swapping to the ball to get back to the point soon. The Fusion have to stay on it, they can't give up this tick. They need to touch the point, and Carpe sacrifices his life. It comes at a dear cost. Fury back over to the point. The Dragons, though, in the winning spot. If Fury goes down, that could be it. And the Dragons, they will move on to face the Shock tomorrow.
And, well, despite the fact that the Shock were able to eventually defeat the Seoul Dynasty, Shanghai making a strong case for APAC being the superior region right now. Map 1 may have been close, Carpe may have put out some heroics, but from there on out, this was the Shanghai Dragons show. They just absolutely ran through the Fusion on these last 2 maps. These weren't even close. Tactical victories from the Shanghai Dragons, just outplaying Fusion. And for Philadelphia, it's going to be back to the drawing board. You've got to really reassess the way you're playing. You've got to learn from what Shanghai just did to you, because this goes beyond mechanics. This was just an outplay by the entire team.
Well, there's an old adage in sports, and it goes across just about anything you can think of. It's the idea that defense wins championships, and the Dragons' defense on Kings Row and Volskaya was just out of this world. When you got into scrappy fights between the two teams, the Fusion looked very good. They came very close to taking the first map, but the Dragons, just their defensive positioning wasn't giving the Fusion a whole lot to work with. You saw Heesu there. Heesu would get maybe one good look per offensive attempt, and other than that, it was coming up dry for the Widow. There wasn't a whole lot of water to be drawn, and it was just tough across the board, where the Dragons just didn't give the Fusion many openings.
Yeah, the word that springs to mind for me to looking at the Dragons is discipline, right? They're not giving the Widow those options. They're not even taking those peeks. When the jump shot comes out, everybody's hiding. Heesu doesn't even have the opportunity to find the pickoff. And what that means is that Heesu just starts shooting a shield. And at that point, you're just wondering, why am I not playing Ashe? Why are we not doing this Ashe Hanzo with the Zenyatta? So for Shanghai, this comp that they're running, choosing those heroes in the double sniper comp with the Roadhog Sigma makes a ton of sense. Your Zen, it can be a risk, right? You can get picked off on the Zenyatta, but it can also pay a big reward. And Izayaki got so many of those long-range frags on the Zen, I think he really justified that pick.
Well, now this brings us to player of the match, which is always difficult when it comes to the Dragons because there's so many good players, but there's one player in particular that truly stood out, and it's Void. And you got to go back to map 1, Jake, where the Fusion looked like they were going to run away with momentum. Who was it that stepped up when the Dragons needed it most? It was Void. Immense hero plays, solid play the entire series long, and that's why he's our player of the match.
Yeah, he's such a critical part of this team. Even from Philly's perspective, right, looking at Heesu pushing into these holds, it's just every time he wants to take a peek, wants to get an opportunity to find a quick headshot, who does he find but Void? Just, throwing those hyper spheres, putting a shield up, constantly in his way. And not only does Void play tactically and play effectively around his team, holding the key positions of the map, but also when the fights do get chaotic, get crazy, Void is reliably there to clutch it out, hitting huge accretions. We saw most of that on the first map on Busan, but Void, the clear winner here in a very dominant series from Dragons.
Well, I've had the #1 from NA face the #2 of APAC and vice versa. And what do we see in the end? The #1 from both regions at the end of playoffs gets ahead. It's going to be the Shock taking on the Dragons tomorrow. And And on the other side, it's going to be the Dynasty versus the Fusion in an outright elimination match. It's going to be just a crazy day of matches tomorrow where it's not something you want to miss.
Yeah, I'm definitely worried for the Fusion. I mean, while Dynasty, they were able to put up quite the fight, bringing Shock to Game 5. I mean, this was a drubbing, ZP. So for Philadelphia Fusion, this is time to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, make some strategic adjustments. Who knows, maybe adapt this comp that the Dragons are running, you know, find a way to utilize it yourself. I think Philly, they definitely have the hero pool to do that. They just need to make those adaptations, make those innovations going into the match tomorrow. You've got to change it up. This match was just not good enough for the Philly Fusion.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing for the Fusion, too, is I think back to some of those openings on Widow where, you know, Heesu was just off by a little bit. If those shots that were misses were just a little bit more to one side and end up being hits, I mean, it could be very different, right? Fusion, they fell short on attack here, and these are attacking runs on Volskaya and Kings Row where just one pickoff could have led to a very different map, which would have led to a different series. So, you know, for the Fusion, it's a very tough loss. It's one that feels pretty bitter. But on the same note, I don't think the Fusion are necessarily going to come up short against the Dynasty tomorrow. I think it's going to be a very good matchup, and really any of the 4 teams we have still has a very good chance.
Yeah, you can't write anybody off. There's a reason that all these 4 teams are here at Grand Finals weekend. However, I'm not going to lie, pretty stoked to see the Dragons take on the San Francisco Shock tomorrow. That is going to be explosive. I think that's been the matchup that pretty much everyone has been waiting for. A matchup that, you know, regardless of how it goes in that upper bracket final, could very easily be our Grand Final. I think, you know, based on the results of today, looks like it probably will be our Grand Final. You can't say for sure yet. You know, there's always that opportunity for upsets to come, for different results to come the next time these teams face each other, obviously with a bit more adaptation, a bit more experience facing each other's playstyles.
Yeah, I mean, you look at a team like Seoul, they have enough old school London Spitfire players that you'd never rule out a run through the lower bracket. Just when you think that they're at their lowest point, you know, they can still channel some of that old energy. Still a long way to go here in Grand Finals weekend. It's just 3 days, but day 1 still has been very interesting thus far.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to see if anyone can crack these really oppressive holes that the Shanghai Dragons are fielding. Their strategy is so cohesive. They're playing in a way that, like, I mean, if you just look at the difference between Philadelphia Fusion on their defense of Volskaya versus Shanghai Dragons, Shanghai had this very innovative style. They're holding, you know, one tank on either side of the choke, snipers playing on the flanks, not really committing to that hut high ground that is typically played by snipers when you're going to hold choke. So they're creating a situation where there's no angles for the Widow to take shots, even when she's jump shotting, even when she's hook shotting, which is typically the moment that she's going to have some sort of chance. So I think that discipline from the Shanghai Dragons to play cover and their ability to separate into 2 small groups and control a choke point with that nice 180-degree surround is very tactically sound, excuse me, and it really gives them that surround advantage. A sound surround, ZP. That's what we described that.
I mean, it was just great to watch, too. I mean, the Dragons are tactically smooth. You can't look at the Dragons and go, they're making a mistake here. It's the perfect blend of tactical genius and mechanical execution. And yeah, I mean, they also got aided by, you know, some good bounces along the way where, and again, even the chances that the Fusion did have, right? Where you think about what we saw Heesu have to work with. A lot of the times it was a jump shot versus a Hanzo where, as anyone knows, if you're playing Widow versus Hanzo, you know, it's not always the most reliable to hit Hanzo's head. And if you're getting like 1 to 2 attempts at that shot every time versus a player that has very adept movement while you're under pressure, I mean, it's no surprise why the Fusion just struggled, because the Dragons just continually put them in situations where they were not getting high percentage chances, and they really had to work for every single opportunity that they got here. And, you know, it's play like that why the Dragons are so fearsome and why so many people do have them as the favorite to win it all.
And another player I think you have to highlight looking at the Shanghai Dragons, a player that has been a bit of an unsung hero so far this season, is Stand One. I mean, we've talked so much about Fearless. He's been this incredibly dominant Winston when that hero has been needed for the Shanghai Dragons. So, you know, he's fairly, I think, been given a lot of attention. But Stand One came in today and put in an absolute showing on this Roadhog, absolutely out-hogging Sado. I think there's no question about that. Every time he gets the hook, not only does he find those hooks first, find them early, but also his team is ready to follow up. They've got the burst damage there. So the coordination on this Hog Sigma looking really solid for the Shanghai Dragons. They don't seem to have any obvious weaknesses. So to go up against the Shock tomorrow, a team who, well, they did beat the Seoul Dynasty, but it wasn't nearly as clean as the match we just saw. I mean, Shanghai have got to be feeling confident. If anything, the only downside is they might be overconfident. This match was even a little bit too easy for the Shanghai Dragons. So, you know, if anything, they just need to calm down, relax. I mean, this is a bit of a weird spot to be in playoffs when you win that dominantly and you're going up against a tougher opponent. You know, you want to feel confident, but you don't want to get ahead of yourself. You don't want to let that confidence turn to cockiness.
All right, well, we've talked enough here, and we want to hear a little bit from the players themselves. That's why we got Danny with Diya.
Jake and ZP, thank you very much. Hi everybody, I'm back, and right now I am here with Diem from Shanghai Dragons. Diem, hello. Diem 선수 안녕하세요.
네, 안녕하세요. 상하이 드래곤즈에서 메인 딜러를 맡고 있는 DM 배민성입니다.
Hello everyone, my name is Diem and I play main DPS for Shanghai Dragons. Alright, before we start the interview, Diem, how are you feeling right now? 지금 소감 말씀해주세요. 어떠세요?
그냥 이겨서 기분이 좋기도 한데 또 이제 상대팀에 저희 아는 친구이자 형이 있기 때문에 좀 기분도 조금 안 좋기도 하네요.
죄송합니다. 한 번만 더 말씀해주세요. 잘 안 들려가지고 sorry, I couldn't hear that. Can you repeat that one more time?
네.
I'm so sorry. 네, 지금 말해주세요.
경기에 이겨서 기분은 좋은데 또 한편으로는 상대팀에 제 아는 형이 있기 때문에 또 한편으로는 좀 안 좋네.
I'm really happy to win, but you know there is a certain person that I know from the team, so on the flip side, I'm a little sad. And would that person be who would that person be? 그 사람이 누군가요?
그 사람은 다들 아시다시피 카르페 선수입니다.
Yes, and of course, everybody, as all of you guys know, it is Carpe. So Diem, coming into the match, a lot of people, including myself, were anticipating this matchup. Everyone was really hyped for this match. I just want your personal opinion. Did you think that it was going to be this easy, like 3-0? Do you think it was going to be this fast? Diem 선수, 솔직하게 말씀을 해주세요. 이번 경기 어떻게 보면 많은 분들이 되게 기대를 많이 했어요. 뭐 이제 양쪽 다 어떻게 보면 1위 뭐 아시아 쪽이랑 북미 쪽이랑 다 1위라는 팀이기 때문에 되게 이 경기 재밌겠다라고 많은 분들이 얘기를 했는데 좀 쉽게 말하면은 굉장히 좀 빨리 이겼잖아요. 좀 이런 거를 어느 정도 예상을 하셨는지.
이 정도로 빨리 끝날 줄은 예상은 못했는데 그래도 빨리 끝낼 수 있을 거다라고 자신감 가지면서 플레이했더니 결과대로 예상대로 됐던 것 같아요.
예상대로? Okay. Alright.
네, 예상대로.
To be honest, I really didn't expect it to go this fast. But you know, like we really prepared a lot for this matchup, and you know, we just sort of did what we had to do, and it sort of went with our plan. That's pretty much it. Alright, so moving on to the second question. You sort of already mentioned Carpe, so my question is about Carpe. Did you guys talk at all before the match started? Did you talk to Carpe about this matchup with Philly Fusion and Shanghai Dragons? 일단 그럼 아까 카르페 선수 얘기를 했는데 카르페 선수랑 혹시 경기 전에 얘기를 하셨나요? 안 하셨나요?
경기 전에는 한마디도 안 했어요. 서로 이제 붙는 팀이다 보니 그냥 매너상 하지도 않았고. 네.
Alright. So, you know, even though we're really close, we really didn't talk at all before the match because we were going up against each other and it was sort of having a good manner so that we could really focus on the game. But now the match is over. Diem, do you have anything that you want to say to Carpe? Because you did mention that that you sort of felt bad about winning Philly or winning against Carpe. 그리고 아까 카르페 선수를 좀 와의 경기가 좀 너무 빨리 돼서 살짝 좀 아쉽다라고 얘기를 하셨는데 그러면 지금 이제 이 기회로 카르페 선수 또 좋은 친구이기 때문에 좀 한마디 하자면은 뭐 하고 싶은 말 있으신가요?
카르페 형 이번 경기에는 좀 아쉽지만 다음에 또 올라와서 좀 더 쟁쟁하게 붙었으면 좋겠어.
All right. So yes, Carpe. You know, this matchup really was really pretty fast. It's really too bad that it went this way, but next time I really hope to go against you again, and I really want to have a really fun and exciting match against you. Okay, one last question for you, Diem. So right before this matchup, I talked to Ans from San Francisco Shock, and he sort of predicted that Philly was going to win because they already played with Philly a lot of times, and he sort of saw that Philly was a really good team. But the outcome was different. Shanghai Dragons won this matchup against Philadelphia Fusion. Do you have anything to say to Ans and San Francisco Shock, who you guys are going to be paired up, or you guys are going to be playing against in the next match? 자, 뭐 제가 이제 이번 경기 시작하기 전에 그 센쇼의 안즈 선수가 이번 상하이 드래곤즈와 또 필라델피아 퓨전 경기에서 필리가 이길 것 같다라고 얘기를 하셨는데 당연히 그렇게 안 됐잖아요. DM 선수 뭐 안즈 선수에게 아니면 또 센쇼에게 하고 싶은 말이 있다면 뭐가 있을까요?
북미와 이제 아시아를 이제 막 사람들이 여론을 많이 좀 하는데 이번 경기로 북미보다는 아시아가 좀 더 강하다라는 걸 안겨줬고 이제 다음은 센쇼 팀입니다.
Alright. So there were a lot of talks about which region is better, North America or Asia, or APAC. But I think through this matchup we sort of proved our, proved that APAC is better than NA. And next up, San Francisco Shock, we're coming for you. Alright, Diem, thank you so much for your time and good luck on your next matchup. 이번 이제 이걸로 인터뷰를 마치겠고요. Diem 선수 마지막으로 가시기 전에 하실 말씀 있으신가요? Do you have anything to say before you go?
카르페 형, 다시 만나자.
Alright, last word from Diem was Carpe, see you soon. Alright, everybody, that is it for the post-match interview, but don't go anywhere. We have Watch Point post-show live coming to you right after break.